track is ready.
Hello, good evening, and welcome. My name is 8 Cylinders of Fury, and welcome to Asseto Corsa Competizione Season 2, Round 11 at Imola, hosted by IRC Esports. Joining me here today is Quantum as my fellow co-commentator. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys? I have been away for like 2 weeks and now I'm back. Feels amazing.
Feels good to be back in the commentator's seat. We do welcome all of you to Round 11 around Imola. Unfortunately, and today we do not have a lap guide, but we will have a look on board with some of the cars during not only free practice, but also qualifying to maybe have an understanding of how the track times are, and also a layout of the track. So let's kick it off, Quantum. Let's bring you right into the conversation. What are your thoughts on Imola?
Imola, this is the home for the Tifosi fans. Like, where are all the look at the grid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have six Ferraris today. Like that's great. That's great for the Tifosi fans. And I guess it's like the first race in rainy conditions, probably. So yeah, we're going to have a great race today.
Oh, we're going to have a very, very topsy-turvy race today, in my opinion. I think there's going to be a lot of misjudged braking points and whatnot. But it is going to be an interesting race, and I do look forward to it.
Yep, absolutely. Rain at Imola, it can be like a judgmental factor on like where people needs to use the proper lines and stuff. But yeah, another thing people need to keep in mind is tires. Like Imola will eat your tire out.
I see. So is this kind of a track where drivers have to manage? It's a fine balance of managing tires and managing pace.
I would say this track will test a driver's like proper endurance skills. You have to manage your fuel, you have to manage your tires, and at the same time you have to have a decent enough pace so people don't cross it. Like 143, 144 is a good enough time around this track, and if people can maintain that, obviously we can't have that, it's rainy, so like minus 2-3 seconds from that. But other than that, it's a really fast track, but there are little offsets about it too.
Anyways, while we're on board with Casey here, let's go for a flying lap of the Imola circuit. We come down towards the Tamburello chicane. Used to be flat out back in the 80s and 90s. Now, of course, it's a chicane due to Senna's incident. We then head down towards a little straight coming down to the light braking zone on the left-hander, and then slightly more braking onto the right-hander, which is Villeneuve. Then we head down towards the Tosa hairpin. Grandstands there for all the people to admire the brilliant cars that GT3 has to offer. Heading down now, ooh, big slap of oversteer there, and KC, unfortunately, that'll be the end of his, well, it's just a practice lap, so driver's currently exploring the margins, but that was the first half of the track. We will have a look later at the second half of the track.
So this time we have a variety of people taking part in the race, and again, a pretty much decent like size of the grid. So we have seen like 11 people, but now we are seeing 16. Last race we had 23 people. So how are you feeling? Like the community is growing, we have more people racing, and how do you think overall the grid performs?
I think that more drivers invites more competitiveness, and there's going to be more for us to see sitting here in the commentary box, and there's going to be more for us to talk about. But the one thing that I've noticed in the past couple of not streams in general, but the ACC races, is that Back markers play a very big role. It's something that I've noticed, and the more drivers you have, the less space there is on track for everyone. I mean, we only have a grid of 15, 16 drivers, usually the highest ever being, as you said, 20 or so. But as the season progresses, we're starting to have more and more people showing an interest in this game. So it's going to be an even more packed field, and I only can imagine, can only dream of the days when we have a 40 car grid, maybe GT3 and GT4, and then we have a lot of back markers and traffic and a lot of things to consider. So it's going to be an interesting race, and as you said earlier, the rain is only going to be an added element.
Yeah, true. Like 40 car grid, it's a dream that we should all hope for someday in IRC. But yeah, coming back to the race, we have one person missing. That's Prakar Vats. He has been winning back-to-back races, except the last one at Nürburgring where he came second. Other than that, he had back-to-back wins, but he'll be missing out on his race today because he's not at home. So yeah. Other than that, we still have Sundar, Masoom, Arora, Tyagi, Joseph, Jackster, KC, Sidhu, Abhishek, Patnaik, Gyan, Electric, Bharat, and Shok. So, what do you think? Like, will separate the leaders from the backmarkers today? Where do you think the most important part where people will miss out or the beginners will miss out?
I feel like it's going to be Imola's assortment of difficult. It's not exactly difficult braking zones, but it's intricate braking zones. The reason I say that is because one braking zone is crucial to the next corner, and there's so many corners. For example, we just saw Tamburello, and now we're coming down to Villeneuve here. All these corners have sort of double braking zones, so you have a little bit of braking coming into the first turn, then you brake harder on the second turn. It's going to be interesting to see how drivers negotiate these parts of the track, but also, as you mentioned earlier, it's going to be mostly how drivers maintain pace versus maintaining their tires. I think that's going to play a lot into all the drivers' strategies here, if you will. So it's going to be interesting to see if how many people go for outright pace, how many people are going to go for a more conservative strategy. But generally, the trend that I'm seeing in terms of the cars that are being picked here is most of them are fairly, not, I would say not the fastest cars in the straight line. I mean, these cars are very quick, don't get me wrong, but it's a fairly power circuit, but it's not exactly filled with cars that are amazing in a straight line. I mean, there's a couple of Bentleys in there of KC and but apart from that, the Ferrari is, I mean, second only in top speed to maybe the Nissan. So it's interesting. It's interesting, definitely. I mean, I'm not by any means an expert in this game, so I have only things to learn. But it's going to be an interesting race, I think. And you did mention before the stream that GT4 cars are better around here. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so like from what I have seen, like most people prefer GT4s on this track just for the sole reason that tires and fuel. Like once you get into that race pace and like the track really starts eating up those tires and like 30 minutes 40 minutes into the race and you have to go into tire conserving mode, or by the end of the race you'll be losing like 1 to 2 seconds of your time depending on your tire wear. So yeah, and especially we can see a lot of people are running Ferraris and McLaren. So mid-engine cars, we all know that they have a big problem of tire consumption in this game. So like and in general also, so that will play a very big role today.
On that note, we have entered qualifying, 15-minute qualifying, as the format usually is. But I think this is the first wet qualifying that you briefly mentioned earlier. It is the first wet qualifying that we have so far in season 2. Oh, big slide there from the Ferrari of Diabishik, getting very sideways. And we are seeing a few custom liveries as well. Interesting to see what the custom liveries look like. But I do have to say that the absence of Prakar, who is our current championship leader by about 40 points, it is interesting, and it shakes up the grid and allows a couple of other drivers to rope him back in the championship. Well, who's your bet for pole sitter today? Let's start off with that.
Probably like Anirudh, because he has been performing really well, and like we all know, like after Prakar and Ghost, like he's one of the fastest driver out there. But we still don't know how his like rain conditions is. But from what I have seen, And what I have heard from him, he says that his like rain race pace is amazing. So let's see. I hope that he gets the pole today.
If he does end up on pole and he does end up winning the race today, he will be that one step closer to challenging Proctor for P1 in the championship. So hopefully, Proctor will be hoping that this is not Anirudh's race, but obviously we can't speculate on that before the race gets underway here. A couple of drivers now out on the warm-up laps, probably on their first banker laps, starting about now, so we should be seeing some times coming in. Could you give us a little insight into track times around Imola?
So I would say like on the very best conditions, dry and optimum, we can have like 143s, even 142s. Ideally, even 140s when you are like having a very good setup and all that. But since we have rain today, probably in the 144s, 146. I really don't have a very broad idea on how like rain plays like the role of taking away time in this track. So I really have to see how it works.
Well, we're going to explore the track times for ourselves as well as we come down to final 10 minutes of qualifying. No driver has put in a qualifying time yet. We should tell you just how treacherous these conditions are right now. A lot of drivers exceeding track limits, not quite getting to grips with the track conditions. I think this should be our first time of the session. Yes, 1:45.5 to get us started.
And Richard began 2/10 of a second slower than me. That's really good. And Abhishek putting in 144. That's good. That's like
a
great
massive
pace.
lap there. Do you think the Ferrari is going to be the outright best car at this track then?
No way. The AMG is outright the best car in this track. But yeah, by the sheer number of Ferraris and why people choose it, can be. But yeah, my bet is always on the AMG. The 2020 AMG is a beast. It has been a beast of a car all year round, and it will be like till the next balance of power comes. It will be a beast.
Interesting. It was most recently added to the game as part of the 2020 update. So we do have that, and the 488 Evo, which has received its own separate praise from 488 drivers and others alike. So it'll be interesting to see. Are there any 488? Are there any Mercedes GT3 Evos in the session today?
Yeah, I think the car that Das is driving, it's an Evo, and also Tyagi is driving the Evo today.
All right. Well, as qualifying currently stands, we have got a couple of laps here as Abhishek puts it in the wall there, the driver behind them obviously witnessing that. So right now we have Banerjee on pole with a 1:44.08 with Jackster in second and thus in third, and we're seeing faster times now as drivers not only are getting used to the track, but also it seems to me that the rain has eased back a little bit, so I think the tail end of qualifying may be a little bit drier, but I'm not sure.
On the other hand, we can see that Jackster, who is driving a McLaren, and with his teammate Joseph, who is also driving a McLaren. So, funny story, I didn't know about this. So, a little bit inside on drivers. Jackster and Joseph drive in endurance races for a team, and I didn't know that. So, one day I was questioning like, whenever you guys change a car, why is it that you and Joseph always change the car? So they're like, we actually race for a team and we go out on endurance races. I'm like, oh, that's actually great. Like I didn't know about that. So yeah, and we have seen a lot of people coming out to ACC, taking part in endurance races. Not only our league races, but we had a endurance race a few weeks back, and we will have one this coming week on Monza. So yeah, we have seen a really growing number of interest people taking part in ACC, and let's see what the future holds for us.
Definitely. Coming now down to the final 8 minutes of qualifying, just under halfway through qualifying, and the difference between the fastest time and the slowest time is about 6 seconds, but I think that's because Electric may have made a mistake somewhere on his lap, but did not invalidate his lap, which is interesting. But if we look at rough lap times, we're seeing maybe 2 seconds between the fastest and slowest driver right now. So if the margins do remain the same, we will have back markers very early on in the race. We're talking 15-20 minutes into the race, we should have back markers coming around. But I do notice that some of the more experienced drivers who have got a lot of experience under the belt with ACC, Marsoum and Abadat have not set a lap yet. It's very interesting. The fact that they haven't, or maybe they have gone out and they have been unable to set a lap time is interesting.
And we have one more racer joining us, Kutti, who is joining at the last 6 minutes of qualifying. Kutti has been he has been a newcomer to the scene, but he is really performing well. For the last 2 races, he has put in some good amount of pace.
Anyways, let's stay on board Sidhu here in the Ferrari as we get underway on a lap time. Hopefully he can keep it within the limits and he can give us an on-board of this wonderful track, which I say is more interesting in GT3 cars than it is for F1 because it's not really many exciting parts of the track, let's say, for F1, apart from the fact that it's very infamous for Senna's death. But we're just coming over the crest here through the Piratella corner, pretty wide right-hander which tightens down the hill, and then fast right-hander up to Acque Minerale, or Minerale I should say. These Italian names are absolutely fantastic, and we'll see more of them in the Monza race that you were talking about. Now coming up to the chicane, the Variante Alta. It's important to carry a lot of momentum through there to maximize, and also maximize track limits to extract a good lap. Then we come back down the hill, a little bit of braking, and then we enter the Rivazza complex, which is basically 2 left-handers, which leads you out to the, I wouldn't say long straight, because one of Imola's identifying features is that it does not have a straight, it has sort of like a curved fast section, I should say.
Okay, clarification from race control. Kutti has said he has alien pace, as race control said. So yeah, I think we will see some performance from him. And we have Faizan joining us. Faizan, he's a racer in IRC Formula 1, and he recently shifted to a steering wheel. So this is his first race on a steering wheel. And from last time what we saw in Nürburgring, he played a really vital role in some of the overtakings that happened around the track. So let's see. And
let's say his role as a back marker was a very pronounced one. I think we'll leave it at that. I think this game is best enjoyed on a wheel. It is not a game designed for controller. You can get away with it on Asseto Corsa, but you cannot with this particular game.
Yeah. Honestly, I use it. It's sad. Just believe me. I am 5 seconds, 6 seconds off pace most of the time, and it's sad. It really hurts to be that slow with a controller. So yeah, this game is not really for people playing with a controller. But yeah, there are people who are really fast on a controller. They know their ways around the track.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's all about understanding the physics of the game and seeing just how much you can push it. I think that at the end of the day, if it's a game about realism, then you can only play it in the most appropriate way, and I would say for this game it's a steering wheel, but that's nothing against playing with a gamepad. You definitely can. I mean, there are drivers within our community who have to some benefit as well, so it's definitely possible, but I would say the best possible way to tackle this game is with a wheel.
And as you can see, Subham Das putting in the fastest time till now, so provisional pole for him. And as the rain eases up a little bit, we can see those dry lines coming up and people starting to use those dry lines. And also track evolution plays a really big part on Imola. So I think the overtime people will get faster.
Yep, it's definitely track evolution plays a big role. Anyways, entering the final stages of qualifying here, drivers should be gearing up towards their final flying lap right about now, so we should get our final sort of banker laps. And this also means that any driver looking to improve on their time will now be trying to get out on track, which means that pretty much every driver will be out on track simultaneously. Unlike, the three-stage qualifying that we have in Formula One. I don't think that's the style in GT3, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see coming down to the final stages of qualifying who comes out on top.
So some real life scenarios. Last time, the last race we saw here was in the GT3 was the 6 hours of Imola that was held during the start of this year and the end of last year. And before that, we all saw the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. So yeah, like the track has been used. Like no, my bad, has not been used for a long time. I think there was a gap of 2 or 3 years in between where most famous races were not being held, be it the GT3s or the GT4s or even the Formula One. Only a few European cities were using this track, and after a few changes, not so major ones, the track was finally opened up for GT3s and Formula Ones. And from the inception of the track back in the 80s, this track has really seen very few changes over time. So yeah, whatever you are seeing here is like more or less part of the original track. So yeah, only the tarmac is new. That's it.
Thank you for that insight. Coming down to the final minute of qualifying here, we do see a lot of drivers in the pits currently, all the way from P3 to P6. All four drivers are in the pits currently. Even SD, who is currently on provisional pole, is in the pits. So, are drivers not looking to improve their time, or are the conditions contrary to what we were thinking originally, getting worse as the session progresses, and maybe drivers think that they can't extract a better lap time with these conditions? I think that does seem to be the case because we do see quite a lot of rain there as we ride on board. We're here with Gyan. He's currently 2 seconds off the pace
Okay,
and
okay.
decides to absolutely destroy that lovely barrier over there at full speed. Very surprised to see Anirudh not near the top 5, currently sitting in P9 and not really improving on his time. As we reach the end of qualifying, your top 3, with Shubham Das taking pole position, Jackster in P2 and Banerjee in P3. And contrary to what we were saying earlier, the Tifosi are going to be disappointed because there is no Ferrari in the top 3. They do come a little bit further down though.
Yeah, Masoom in P4, Sidhu in P5, and Abhishek in P6. Followed by Patnaik in P7, Aurora in P8, Sundar in P9, that's a surprise. Joseph in P10, Tyagi in P11, KC P12, Gyan P13, Bharat P14, Shruk on P15, Electrip, Shetty, Faizan, and Kutti making the final 4. And I don't think Kutti ever put in a lap. He just went out for like this out lap and came back in. So yeah,
We're not seeing any evidence of that alien pace just yet. Maybe we will in the race.
yeah, probably.
But this is going to be an interesting drive for Anirudh Sundar, who's currently, he qualified P9. But it's going to be interesting for him because he's currently sitting P2 in the championship. And one would say that with Prakar not participating, it'll be a good opportunity for him to claw back some points. So I'm not entirely sure what happened to him during qualifying, but the number 5 Ferrari is currently in P9. We are 2 minutes out from the green flag as drivers are doing the final preparations. I think it's time for us to ask you guys in the chat, what are your predictions for this race? Who do you think is going to finish, and who do you think is going to cause the most drama? I think both of those questions will yield very different answers from everyone. And on that topic, Quantum, what are your predictions for the race?
As much as I want the Tifosis to go for the positions, but I think Jackster and Shubham will have the upper hand. But I'm not really sure. Pace has been improving for the entire grid, and in terms of the leaders in the league, Sundar has to make a lot of space, and so same goes for Kapil and Casey. Like they have to climb through the entire grid, and also pit timings will play the major factor of where people end up during the final stretch. So yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to go a little bit left field, and I'm going to say that Anirudh is going to make a big charge up the field in complicated conditions and have sort of drivers pirouetting and spinning everywhere. I think he might put on a good comeback drive and manage to rake in some points and close the gap to Brucker. I think that'll be on his mind, and I think during qualifying he just decided not to make a mess of it and just stuck with the time that he did. I think he just put in a lap or two. I think he'll just try to go for it in the race, and that seems to be what a lot of drivers will be thinking, as we are en route, I should say, to lights out as drivers come around final two corners, and we will get lights out as they come past the finishing line or the starting line.
Yep. So in the next 15 minutes of the race, we still have some amount of rain or like medium amount of rain. We are not really sure of what's going on with the rain right now. But yeah, overall the pace of the grid in the first two laps will matter. And we hope that there is no pile up. People are careful in the first two corners, even the first three corners.
I think on the topic of pile-ups, the race control at Laguna Seca had a word with the drivers. As we just get lights out here, we will resume that in just a second as the drivers start to get eager with that throttle pedal, keeping the speed just below 70 kilometers an hour as they approach the starting line. The minute it goes green, they'll be able to give it full gas down to the Tamburello corner. Here we go, almost time as they come past the starting line. Still no green flag, and it's green, and we get underway. Shubham Das leads us into turn one. Just behind him is a Mercedes. The timing tree has become a little bit jumbled, so we will have a look. I think Banerjee may have done one up Jackster before Tamburello.
And we have a crash.
I think it was inevitable considering the very slippy, slidey conditions out there. But most drivers, I think 75% of the grid have managed to keep it very tidy as we see a lot of Beyblade action going on here between the drivers, spinning around here and there and knocking into each other and becoming a passenger essentially at that point. And
Kapil getting caught in that fight, that was unfortunate for his side. And in the meantime, we already have a drive-through in the first lap for Faizan. Faizan has a drive-through before even the race started, so okay.
Yes, I think we may have to go back in the replay cams and see where he may have picked up that penalty. But big fight down here for it's not P3 actually. Oh, it is P3, never mind.
It's P3.
Big fight for P3 down here as Jackster has dropped. Oh, Jackster is in the McLaren. We're looking at Jackster right now. He has Abhishek on the attack in the number 72 Ferrari behind him. Masoom also in P5. And I think I am right in assuming that Anirudh may have been involved in that incident because he has dropped back to P16. Commentator's curse has struck again. I shouldn't have opened my mouth before the race, but he currently sits in P16 after having a dreadful start. And the comeback drive as well and truly on for him.
And Masoom getting P4 from Abhishek while Abhishek was coming for the final chicane. He miscalculated and overturned, and Masoom was able to capitalize and take P4 from him.
Good move.
Aurora on the bumper of Abhishek in the meantime.
On board with Masoom here as we come through Tamburello. We are one lap in, and the timing tree has officially updated all our time. So right now, Shubham Das still in the race lead. Banerjee gaining a position on the opening lap. Jackster dropping back a position. Masoom making up positions on the opening lap. And we have Abhishek in P5, Aurora in P6, Sidhu in P7, Patnaik in P8, and we look a little further back down the grid. KC got a dreadful start, and he has found himself in P9. Putti in P10. The alien pace is working out well for him. And of course, I would say the biggest loser in this opening period. Not loser, it's maybe the wrong word to use, but the biggest non-benefactor from this opening period is Anirudh. But right now there's a move to Ferrari and Aston Martin side by side going through the Acqua Minerale section, and the
Sidhu loses out on the end of the corner and gives that position away. And in the meantime, we can see that two people have already pitted. One is Kapil Bharat, and I think another was Richard Gyan because of the damage they sustained from the previous crash. So yeah, that was a bit of bad luck for them. Kapil Bharat, we saw his perspective. He was not really someone who started the incident or was anywhere near it, but still got caught, and he had to pit because of the damage. And you can see that his Bentley in the pit. So yeah, probably like huge amounts of damage. And we are on board Jackster right now, who's in P3. He's gaining time to R Banerjee, and in the meantime, Masoom still tailing him. Masoom falling a bit behind, and then fall also behind him Abhishek, who's like lost more than 1 second. I think he was 1.5 away, and now he's 1.8. And before the overtake, he was like zero point 0.2 seconds away from him. So yeah, and Abhishek has managed to increase his pace from Aurora. We have seen Aurora in the last few races has been able to manage his pace throughout the race. He's a very wise driver. He drove with me for the endurance, and believe me, like when it's time, he can maintain those tires. He can put in the pace, and he can really show you what it's like to be a proper racer in a GT3.
right now we are on board with Uday Sidhu in P7 on the Bharat 1 team, rocking the colors of the Indian flag, although that's not immediately apparent considering the arrangement of the said colors of the Indian flag, as we have a Mercedes behind him hopping the curbs there, bouncing around everywhere, and in real life that's suspension damage, but we'll disregard that for this purpose of this race, as they are
And
getting very close here.
and that Mercedes, though it eats a lot of curves, but those anti-cut curves, he tried to eat them, and the car went a little bit into the air. And for some reason, Sidhu is trying to flash someone who is not ahead of him. But yeah, and we can see that Kutti, like,
I think that maybe Kuti. That's is it in the Ferrari? Was the Ferrari
yeah, it
flash?
was first the Ferrari was flashing, and then
That is interesting indeed. But Kuti on the attack here. He will try to get the move done into Tamburello if he can get the slipstream. He is right on the bumper here. Pulls out of the slipstream, unable to really make the most of that opportunity. He will look to try again a little further on the lap as we have a Bentley of KC coming off at Tamburello, just carrying a little bit too much pace there. Battle is very nice here for P7. Sundar has made massive gains on his position, went from P16 to P11 in the space of just 5 minutes.
yeah, and Kutti with his alien pace, trying to cross Sidhu. They are trading
Side by
pace.
side. Will he get the move done? Just inches ahead. Oh, and gets the move done. Oh, and he's got contact. A little bit of revenge there from Sidhu. What do you think?
Probably, but yeah, I think that was really unfortunate because I don't think like he's one of those racers who will do that. But yeah,
I think
yeah.
go on. No, I was just going to say that I had a chat with one of the drivers. I won't mention who because I think they'd like to remain anonymous. I had a chat with one of the drivers who races regularly in ACC, or he's just started racing regularly in ACC, and he's talked about how difficult it is to follow a driver at that close proximity into a braking zone. It's very, very difficult, especially if you've got a bad net connection. It's difficult to judge when they're braking and when you're braking. As we see KC in the big Bentley trying to make moves up the field. Went from P9 to P8. Already having some back markers here. Patnaik in P19. Anirudh has made up another position up into the top 10 now. He will be on the comeback drive right now.
KC. On the side of penalties, Kapil got a stop and go because probably he was speeding out of the pits. So yeah, that's like more loss for him.
Indeed. A double-edged sword, the pit lane. It can also help you relieve your penalties as well as punish you with more penalties.
And Patnaik is in the pits in the meantime.
Naik has he pitted? Oh, he has pitted. Yes, you're right. He's currently. Oh, big spin there from Masoom. Oh, very close there between him and I think that was D Abhishek. Yes, it was. Will the Bentley of KC, is that KC? Not entirely sure there. My apologies, but he seems to have dropped back 1 or 2 positions there, Masoom, after a big spin coming out of Tosa.
And the way he rejoined the track, that's probably illegal, because if there is a train of cars behind you, you have to get off the racing line, wait for the entire train and plus 1 second, and then you have to get on the racing line. So yeah, I think the race control will have to look into it. He's trying to cross Kapil Bharat, who is in P18 with a penalty, and Kapil not giving him enough space, and he will try to make those positions, getting off the racing line, and also Kapil going into the pits.
Works out well there. I think in the last race, I think it was Kapil who was having a fight with a back marker. I'm not entirely sure who it was, but he was embroiled in a fight with a back marker for a considerable period of time, and the back marker just continually wanted to unlap himself, which was both funny, but not obviously not for Kapil. He would have found it very annoying. But that is kind of how the general back marker behavior is, if you will. If you're faster, then you unlap yourself. As we are on board with Masoom here, that one spin aside, I think he's done very well so far, kept it fairly incident-free throughout these opening 10 minutes. We are already seeing the effects of back markers here. A couple of drivers already finding themselves at the back of the grid and in other people's ways, and a lap down with only 10 minutes down.
And you can already see the gap between P11 and P12. That's over 15 seconds. Then 20 seconds, and 23 and 27 seconds. So that's actually a lot. And if you go up like into the first few people who are racing, like you can see that they will be approaching the back markers within like a lap or two, like probably from the pace they are having. But at the same time, we can see that Kutti has been able to make up 2 more positions from P13 to P11, and he is still battling. I think, who's that?
That's Anirudh in the...
Yeah, that's Anirudh. Yeah, and Kutti
Anirudh,
is crossing.
this is going to be a good battle here. 2 drivers on very good pace right now. Anirudh has changed up his livery a little bit as Kutti puts a wheel in the gravel there, just coming out onto the pitch straight now. Anirudh has changed up his livery a little bit. It was a sort of dark, sort of burgundy red, if you will, until the last race, and now it's got shades of purple in there as well. And his team is called Ferrari Trackalicious. How wonderful. Will he get the move done here? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, he's probably like changing his livery for our upcoming. Oh, there was a big contact from Kutti onto the side of Anirudh, and that's probably like 8, not 8, my bad, like 10 to 15 seconds of damage.
That was a big shunt there. I don't know if that was completely intentional. It may not have been. Just didn't see Abhishek beside him coming out of Tamburello. Big contact there between them, and Abhishek sent to the Shadow Realm, aka the barrier. And that will, as you said, result in a little bit of damage. And maybe in some other series, that's a retirement. But in GT3, it means damage. And I think drivers would rather take the retirement than to race with damage and finish in P16, completely away from the points. But we'll see as the race progresses just how Anirudh does. He's had a very, very we should say eventful start, but very unfortunate start from him as D. Joseph is defending from Kutti, coming into the chicane, the Variante Alta, and I think he gets the move done very well.
That's the alien pace we were talking about.
That is the alien pace we were talking about, and it's coming good here.
Yeah, so the Mercedes, it's a chonky boy, like it's a really chonky boy, and from a driver who usually drives a Mercedes, you know, sometimes when you are like overtaking, people can be in the blind spot, and it's really hard to assume where your opponents will be when you get out of the corner. So yeah, I don't think that was really intentional. And we can see here Aurora crossing Sidhu on the end of the final start-finish stretch, and into the Tamburello, and Aurora crosses Sidhu. I think that was for P6. Yes,
it was.
And that tap from Sidhu towards Kutti made him lose all the positions, and here we can see Sidhu also losing his battles. So yeah, Kutti will be on the tail of Sidhu for his revenge anytime soon.
Also, some people in chat are asking if the Mercedes is the chunky boy. It is, but I think the Bentley is the true chunky boy in this game. I think I'd say it's probably the largest car in terms of physical size. It's the largest car. But
The Mercedes is not the chonkiest boy, but it's a chonky boy. The
I think for
chonkiest is still with the Bentley.
I think for the sake of professionalism, we should stop using the word chunky. But a couple of drivers going off track there. I'm not sure who was. I think that might have been Diabashig in the number 72 Ferrari. But oh no, that might have been Faizan. Currently at McLaren here, attacking and takes the position. Oh wait, no, that's two McLarens. I am blind.
That was the back marker. That was Faizan being lapped by Jackson.
Faizan currently in P17, and I think he may actually be a lap ahead of Patnaik. I think Patnaik may be 2 laps behind the rest of the field now. Not a good race for him so far. Very promising driver, good pace, but the luck just doesn't seem to be in his favor.
Patnaik, from like what you said, sorry to cut you out like that, but yeah, from what I have seen and I have raced with him, Patnaik has really good pace. The only points where he misses out are his, track bounding knowledges. Like, he will cut a corner and go on for the speed, and then he will take the penalty. He will serve the penalty. He will come back out on the track, and then he will do that same thing again. He has pace, but I don't know what happens when he comes to corners. Like, he just loses his mind and goes over everything he sees.
Well, racetracks are a combination of corners and straights, so I think he needs to fine tune his driving a little bit more. Let's say. We will have a look at the chat right now. Didn't Anirudh get shunted? Asks our moderator. I don't think he did. I think they were side by side going to the second part of Tamburello, and I think he may have just not seen Anirudh to his side. Anirudh got a good exit out of the first part of Tamburello, and he was alongside. I think it was his incident with D. Joseph, or I think it may have been. And I think he got alongside him and just didn't see him there, and he just proceeded with the racing line as he usually would. As Masoom getting elbows out here with KC, the Bentley versus the Ferrari. Let's see who triumphs here.
And in the meantime, while those two are fighting for the positions, you can see Kutti slowly coming onto their bumper, and he will attack them. Like, he has been gaining a lot of pace, he has been reducing his time, and Masoom losing it out to the Bentley, getting on the gravel. And a small news, I don't know if I should say this or not, but yeah, Masoom currently is very sick, and it's fortunate that he is driving here today, and let us hope he gets well soon.
Yep, that is true. And we do hope that he gets well soon, but the driver's just settling in now, and a little bit of a couple of gaps forming up between drivers as Masoom tries to reclaim his position after bringing 2 wheels on the gravel coming out of the penultimate turn. He does reclaim the position on KC, but for how long is the question. We come past the fast medium speed left-hander of Tosa, down to the Piratella corner, fairly wide entry right-hander.
And there you see Kutti on the bumper of KC.
Not only was he just on the bumper, he gave him a hit on his bumper and sent KC into the wall there. Very aggressive moves here from Kutti. I don't know. That's the most sporting way. Yeah, sorry, Karan.
Yeah, that was a really bad thing for him. Like, for him, like, race control will have a look into this as well. So.
I mean, it's one thing being very fast and being very aggressive, but it's another thing giving drivers a little love tap coming out of the corner as there's another couple of cars pirouetting there. This is D. Joseph and KC just facing each other and having a little argument there, and then they just get on their way. And both of them will lose a couple of positions there as Anirudh makes his way up into P9, and they're coming together again, heading down to the final two corners. The Rivazza section. Casey briefly keeps the position, but D. Joseph comes alongside. It's fairly clean racing between the two of them. Probably not evidenced by what happened between them earlier in the lap, but definitely keeping it clean for now. It'll be a drag race down to Tamburello. Although, no, Casey dives into the pits, so I think D. Joseph gets the position there purely because of that. Ooh, we can see drivers struggling with the track conditions right now. It's very slippery out there as Electrip just losing the rear end.
Yep.
You do see it. Yep.
And Kapil, in the meantime, he's trying to gain whatever he can from the last 2 laps. Like he's trying to, go up to pace, like outlap the people who has lapped him, and then go on for a little bit of fight, whatever he has left by the end of the race. And in the meantime, Kutti has gone to P8, and he'll soon be attacking Masum again. We have Sidhu in P5, Jackster in P4. Wait, is that Faizan? Yeah, Faizan.
The fight now is between Anirudh and the McLaren. Oh no, wait, that's Faizan, I think. Back marker.
Yeah, back marker Faizan.
Well, Faizan is putting up a real fight for someone who is a back marker and seems to be pushed wide as he finally concedes the position.
And Das and Banerjee still regaining their positions, P1 and P2 respectively. Jackster losing out from P2 to P3, but he hasn't lost any positions since then. Abhishek has been able to climb 2 positions which he lost during the start of the race. So it's a fairly good race for all the people in front, for at least the 5 people in front. And in the meantime, Aurora conceded a position to Sidhu. So yeah.
As the field just starts to settle down a bit here, but still a couple of drivers fighting for track position, separated by just a couple of seconds. Jackster seems to be within a second of Banerjee here. D. Abhishek is within a second of Jackster here, and Jackster is about 4 seconds off Banerjee. Banerjee is quite a bit off SD, who just seems to be flying away from the rest of the field. Currently nearly 10 seconds clear of everyone else.
Yep, absolutely. Which Banerjee is this? This is probably Rishabh Banerjee, but I'm not sure what his full name is. So, yeah.
I think it is. I think it is Rishabh Banerjee, as mentioned earlier, and he's from he's out of Singapore flight. I think it might be. Coming down now to the last 40 minutes of the race, just a little before halfway, and the conditions during the race doesn't seem to be improving. We still have rain pretty much for the next 15 minutes, and we have greasy track conditions. Track temps are also kind of low, not very low, as we do see during night races, but the track temp is pretty low, 27 degrees. Also not much in the way of wind speed, so that's not really a big factor. We have Masum coming down to Tamburello, seem to be within 0.8 of a second behind Aurora. Maybe he will look to get the position done on this lap, but we will have to see. What has been your impressions of the race so far, my friend?
The race has been really good. We have seen proper overtakes, we have seen proper shunts, we have seen proper puntering till now. So yeah, this has been a really good race.
A lot of sending people into the shadow realm, I think, has been a prevalent feature, especially from the driver currently sitting in P8. He seems to have got involved in a number of incidents. We're not sure what race control will be talking to him about after the race, but let's just say his overtakes have been less than ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen a lot of illegal, not illegal, but then again not the right move, both from people who made contacts and as well as people who slipped away while taking turns or on the straight. So yeah. And right now, Aurora getting out of the way.
Aurora, big slap. Just, I think, touched the exit curb there, and that spun up his rear wheels and obviously sent him sideways. D. Abhishek in a very, very red Ferrari coming down the pit straight, and he seems to be lapping 4/10 faster than Jackster ahead of him. Seems to be a lot better on the tyres, the Ferrari, than the McLaren. I think Prakhar has mentioned it in a number of instances, who's a regular user of the McLaren, is that the McLaren really must be within the right tyre pressure to be at maximum pace, and obviously it takes a lot of skill to keep your tyres within the right pressure region. So that'll be interesting to see how Jackster handles the attack from D. Abhishek behind him. As we see the effective back markers again, this will be a feature. A lot of flashing there.
And
I
Electric
think,
not
yep,
posing any threat to all the people there.
I think both drivers got past the back marker in a fairly uneventful section, just a straight line. And now they're coming to the back end of the circuit here. They should be heading down to the chicane, the Variante Alta, in a second. So we will see if there's any big braking moves coming in. I don't think there should be. And no, there wasn't.
And as you were saying, the McLaren is a pretty fine machine, I would say, for anyone who's into there, for beginners as well as experienced people. But then again, like it will take some amount of skill to maintain tires on it, because like overall the McLaren is a mid-engine car. So yeah, like at the end of the day, you have to preserve your tires throughout the race. And the Ferrari, I think, because of its like overall balance of the car, it somehow outperforms the McLaren in some ways, but then again it depends on the driver.
Tell you what, I don't think Anirudh will be optimistic of his chances of picking up a podium, as we have a driver spinning there. That was Gyan in the Ferrari, spinning a very brightly colored Ferrari as well, I might add, spinning there and allowing the drivers to get by without much fuss. Tell you what, that Rocket Racing McLaren does look spectacular. Brilliant livery that by Jensen Button and Co. Fantastic combination. But
Yeah, absolutely.
he is right on his diffuser there. Yes, go ahead,
The
Quantum.
livery of the world's fastest sim racer. So yeah, that probably looks amazing.
Oh
And
yeah.
Abhishek losing it at the end of the Tamborello, I guess that was it. And
No. I think this is that was coming out of the. It's coming out of Piratella.
okay.
They're on the back section of the track now.
Yeah. And I think he'll lose a few tenths of the second coming into the Variante Alta, and he'll try to like maintain his pace. And we see Sidhu going out all in and losing it at the end, and Masoom crossing him for P5. And in front of them we have two back markers, Gyan and Casey.
Indeed. And Anirudh as well, unfortunately for him, currently finds himself as a back marker for the drivers ahead to negotiate, rather than a driver who's currently going to have to fight them for track position. Very unfortunate. And I think in his mind, he must be thinking that this weekend, or I would say this race, has probably provided them the best opportunity to close the gap on Prakhar in the Drivers' Championship. But it's obviously not the case, as he seems to be having an absolutely shocker of a race. As there is contact there between the back marker. I think that was D. Abhishek and Electrip that were getting involved. Electrip maybe slowing down coming out of fast. I think that was the exit of Tamburello, and Electrip just choosing to go a little slowly, and Abhishek not so much so, and they just make contact, and it was enough to send them both spinning.
Yeah, and we see Casey going into the pit for the second time. I don't know why he's going. Maybe he has some amount of damage, but yeah, he's making his pit for the second time. And we see Aurora and Kutti on bumper. Oh no, separated by Sundar, but yeah, Kutti will try to, like Sundar should be able to give enough space for Kutti to go forward and attack Aurora. And in the meantime, there is no action into the first three. Oh wait, I think Jackster went into the pits, and yeah, no, he didn't. So Jackson lost a position to Abhishek, who's now in P3.
And he hasn't pitted yet. Interesting. I mean, considering the time difference between them, yeah, it doesn't seem like he did pit there, but he has lost a position. Tell you what, though, as a driver who regularly finds himself having to contend with back markers, it will be very odd for Anirudh to find himself as a back marker right about now. But one thing is probably evidenced by that is that he knows what a back marker should be doing, because as a driver at the front, he probably knows what a back marker usually does wrong under blue flags in that situation.
Yeah, so Sundar, who hasn't really received a blue flag till now. Oh yeah, there was it, and I think he'll be giving away space to Kutti soon. But Kutti has to be safe. You can't make moves while going into the and he slips a bit while coming out of the corner, coming into the corner, and yeah, something which I didn't know. So there are some things called as illegal zones in tracks where you can't really make a move, even though there are back markers ahead of you. And if Kutti does, I think that will be a massive, shocker, and he has to speak with race control for that. Like whatever happens. So in tracks where you have tight corners like Imola, Monza, then there's Mount Panorama. There are sections which are called as illegal zones, and you can't really make a move. No matter how fast you are, you cannot make a move.
Let's ask everyone in the chat a little question just to keep everyone awake and on their toes. Would you prefer the Imola layout without the Tamburello chicane for these GT3 cars, or would you rather it be there? Because from what I've seen so far, it's been a mixed reaction. There's been a lot of drivers, there's been a lot of contact. It doesn't really serve as a major overtaking zone. I mean, it's just another braking zone, and it just unnecessarily creates contact between drivers. So do let us know in the chat if the Tamburello chicane, which was added after Senna's incident there, has been a good addition to the track, or maybe you prefer a very, very fast left-hander there. Probably not flat out for GT3 cars, but maybe in the modern F1 cars. Do let us know.
So like if I get to put my point in that, so
Oh
in
yes, do go ahead.
yeah, and if you see most of the recent tracks or the recent addition of tracks that are being added for GT3s, like drivers prefer a fast section rather than chicanes right now, because we all know like how these cars can be and how like corners can upset them. And for example, you can take a look at Kelami, right? After a few improvements, like the current Kelami, it's amazing. Like people love racing there. You have fast straights, you have slow corners, and you have the
Oh, but just
proper
putting.
overtaking zones.
Indeed, indeed. I think we've had most of the fast tracks already in the season. We've had Monza, we've had Spa, and Bharat, I think, getting a move done. No, it's under back markers, I guess.
And probably he got a track warning for that because he like cut into the left-hander, and that will
Interesting.
like put him into a risk zone. And in the meantime, we can see Faizan, who has very damaged car, but he's still driving with it. First time for him racing with a steering wheel. So yeah, like we hope that he improves over time and like makes less contact.
I
And
think this may be his second race, because I think he was in the Nürburgring race last week, and again he found himself towards the back end of the grid. But yes, I think there's nothing that a little practice will not solve. So we do hope that Faizan can get his act together and join everyone at the front of the grid, because he definitely has the pace. I think we've seen in F1 he has the pace to keep up with the best drivers. I think it's just a case of getting used to the wheel, as you said. As we see Kuti, after a barnstorming first half an hour to his race, has now found himself in the podium positions in P2. As we were having a little discussion earlier, I think there will be discussions between him and race control due to the, I think if we were to put it frankly, the slightly precarious overtaking that he's been doing until now. But as we have a look further down the grid here, we have shuffled up the pack a little bit. SD finally relinquishes the race lead after he pits, and I think that'll be the final pit stop for him. It should be the last stint for him, but you do have to keep in mind that Kuti ahead of him has not pitted yet. Who is currently in? I think it might be. Oh no, our Banerjee is in 7th. So who's currently in the race lead? Oh, Aurora is in the race lead. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Finding himself in P5. Yes, go on.
R. Banerjee choosing the 2015 Mercedes over the 2020. I don't know why he did that, but yeah, like from the looks of it, he's still driving the older Mercedes, and he's still with pace with the newer cars. So yeah, like you can properly see how good his pace is. And we have just a few more pit stops for the overall grid to complete. That's Aurora, I think Kutti, Joseph, Shetty, and Shuk, who is a back marker, recently went into the pit. So yeah, that completes the overall driver lineup for the pitting. And SD will look into getting his positions for the T1 again. He has been leading the race for like the longest time right now, and also I think Abhishek and Jackster and I think Banerjee, those people will also try to make up positions that they lost while pitting. And Kutti has to pit. I think he will make a proper move and go into the pits while everyone is caught up between him and the back markers. So yeah, that will be a decisive moment for the race.
I think for him, he's trying to maximize the fact that he's still on warm tyres, whereas the drivers who have just finished their pit window are on slightly colder tyres for the first couple of laps. So I think he is eager to put a little bit of air between him and the rest of the field behind him, and maybe dive into the pits and only come out a couple of seconds behind them, or maybe even in front of them. But it'll be a big ask for him, as D. Shetty also getting into the fringes of the top 5 here in P4. Jackster has dropped back a little bit after his pit window, but of course he may make up a couple of positions when the drivers ahead choose to eventually pit.
Yeah, absolutely. And also Shuk got a stop and go while he was coming out of the pits. So yeah.
After asking if everybody would have the Tamburello or remove it, a lot of people have said yes to the Tamburello corner. Interesting. A lot of punts at Tamburello, so that's why I'd have Tamburello, says someone in the chat. Good. Good that you have your priority sorted there, sir. Indrath.
With each punt you lose around what 50 or 35, nearly 35 to $50,000 of bodywork. And if it goes into the barriers, that's like half quarter of $1,000,000.
Oh yeah. I mean, if we're looking at it from a financial point of view, we've seen a lot of action today already from many people's wallets. But I think we should stick to the racing here, as top 5 have just kind of separated themselves. T. Shetty just ahead of Jackster here, separated by just 0.6 of a second. This is a 5-track position. This is not a car under blue flags. And I think we should mention that because in the first race that we commentated together, Quantum, you'll remember that some drivers at Spa were a little bit forgiving when it came to blue flags, and even though they were fighting for track position, they just let each other by.
Yeah. And right now it's like that watering hole near a jungle. Everyone will fight everyone. And as you can see,
that has been the general trend, isn't it? Not everyone's separated by just a second or two. There is no 20, 30-second gaps opening up anywhere. So it is constant action for us to commentate over. Oh, as Dean Shetty goes off there.
While we were in the cockpit of Jackson, you could see that all of his 4 tires were pretty cold. Like, that's not really great for the McLaren, because if it doesn't come up to the proper temps, he will be losing pace and he'll be at the risk of not scoring the podium that he was having. So yeah. And Shuk went into the pit for his stop and go.
Did Jackster just lose a position to Masoom, or was it SD? I think he may have lost a position to Shubham Das. But he was fighting against Shetty, so it's interesting.
Yeah, in the meantime, Aurora still in P1, while you have Kutti in P2, P3 is Das, 4 is Jackson, 30. So, by the looks of it, when Kutti and Aurora go in for their pitting window, I think Das and Jackster will be able to cross them. And same goes for Shetty. Shetty will also be, losing his P5 unless people get caught up between the back markers and them. And Faizan losing it a little bit, but still maintaining, not going out. And Kutti right on the. That's Kutti, right?
That is,
Yeah, that
and
is Kutti. Yeah.
actually, yes, that is good to hear. I thought he was still behind him, but he has gone ahead of him now. Very aggressive, not only to drivers that he's fighting for track position, but also towards back markers. Something tells me Kuti is a bit of a bully, and he's just kind of forcing his way through the field. If not like a surgeon's scalpel, more like a blunt axe. Just sort of chopping away eventually until something gives. And that's one strategy. I think drivers would rather fabricate a well-timed move rather than just maximum attack everywhere. But obviously different drivers have different philosophies when it comes to that, so it's all about what works for you.
Yeah, Kutti putting in back markers between him and Das and trying to improve, gain on his time so he can go in for that bit, because last 20 minutes of the race and you may never know what happens. Ooh,
Oh,
Faizan
it's
is losing
Faizan.
it.
I think he does seem to be showing his relative beginner status with a wheel, but practice makes perfect. You will make mistakes in the beginning. Everyone does. Nobody starts off being amazing. So keep at it, Faizan, and you eventually it'll come to you, mate. No doubt about it. As I think right now there's a battle between him and Electric for track position. It'll be interesting to see how Faizan's car control comes in here, but I think Electric has a lot more pace, more well-versed with the game, as he puts two wheels on the gravel there, just exceeding track limits. Faizan still keeps the position, heading down into the... We're now heading up into the uphill into the fast left-hander of Tosa. That was the Villeneuve chicane just now that they negotiated, and now they're coming up to the Tosa corner. Electric right on Faizan's bumper there, and I think Schrock behind them may also be thinking about a move here, maybe a double overtake. If one of them makes a mistake, and Electric does make a mistake, as I was just mentioning it there, outbroke himself.
Trying to defend, and while we were, waiting for Electric to cross, Faizan was trying to block him, and Electric did punt him in the back a little bit. And
big contact there. Faizan trying to defend his position, sending Schrock into the grass, and what that'll do is have the domino effect of pushing Schrock further back into Electric. So Electric will now fight with Schrock, and Schrock will have to defend. May I suggest, sir, that you change your name to Shrek? Is that too? Nah, just a little joke from my side. Schrock there, currently defending from Electric. Electric will try to send it up the inside, but choose not to do so right at the last second.
Faizan really defending his position by tapping people on their door. It's like, knock, you do not get the position right now.
Very aggressive defending maneuvers there from Faizan, but I think we could excuse him for his relative inexperience with, I'm not sure if it's with ACC, but with a wheel. He may be a little unfamiliar, but he's currently having to defend from two very fast drivers. Behind him is three drivers going side by side through Tamburello. Make it four, but I think one of them might be SD, who's currently getting embroiled in this back marker battle.
Yeah, if SD loses his car because of any of them, there will be a problem today.
SD will be giving all those drivers an earful in Parc Fermé later on. Oh, I thought, is there a Parc Fermé in GT3?
I don't think it's called Parc Fermé, but I don't know what it's called.
Let's just call it the drivers' briefing room afterwards. Yeah. They'll be having a nice firm talk, but I think SD gets past there without incident. But these three drivers still going at it. Faizan just parking it on the inside there, coming through. I think this this is coming through the Acque Minerale. It's Italians and their naming. It's very complicated for the rest of the world, but it's fine. Coming down towards the Variante Alta, which is the chicane. Oh, 3 wide into the chicane. Schrock briefly gains a position, but I think he will lose time in over the gravel. Faizan defending worth every single horsepower in that McLaren. But I think
was the real action today.
that was the real action today. It had me on the edge of my seat, and the battle is still not over, assuming Faizan can keep up with Electra. But I think Faizan is a little bit... he probably was the slower driver going into that battle. Electra just eventually getting past, but it'll cost Faizan's valiant defense will only cost all 3 drivers time. And now Schrock is looking to line up a move as Aurora pits, Shetty pits. But where is Kuti? Kuti is still out up front, and he is seems to be about 24 seconds clear of SD. Is that enough of a margin to retain the lead of the race?
Probably not, because the moment he starts going into the pits, SD will make a lot of time, and Faizan getting tabbed by, I think, Schrock. Yeah, and still Faizan needs to do his pit and Kuti, so those are the final 2 drivers who still need to go for their pits, and let's see when they go in for that.
Faizan's favorite song must be Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus, because that's how his defending has been today. It's been very on the edge, it's been very full of energy, full of adrenaline, kind of like a wrecking ball. And he's been, I would say, less than ideal defending against the drivers behind them. Anirudh finding himself on the fringes of the top 10. Do you think he's perhaps a little disappointed with how the race has come out, considering he's lost traction to Prakhar in the championship?
Probably yes, but let's see what he does, because final 15 minutes, I don't think he'll able to gain a lot of positions, but he might be able to creep his way into the top 10. But yeah, this race will hurt him a lot.
So I think we're having some technical difficulties from this.
Yeah, the stream stopped. Yep. It got stuck for a little bit, but it's on again.
Are we back live?
Yeah,
we are live again. Yes, we are. Sorry for that brief technical difficulty there. We just seem to be having a problem on the streamer side. You will have to stay on board. Gyan here is currently in P10, but we will tell you what's happening a little up the grid. Kuti has still not pitted yet. He's still in P1. SD is in P2, and R Banerjee is in P3. You will have to bear with us here while we sort out the technical difficulties. Just have a look at the chat here. Hashtag Faizan, hashtag just Faizan things. Faizan should try his hand at Wreckfest. Come on, guys. He's a beginner. He's on a wheel for the first time. I think we should cut him a bit of slack. Anyways, we will... I can only apologize for the technical difficulties that's currently happening right now. We are still on board with Gyan because we seem to be having an issue on the streamer's side. The stream should be still up, but we can't control the position and who we're spectating at any point in time, but we will keep you updated. Anirudh, still on the fringes of the top 10, currently finds himself 7.6 seconds behind Gyan. I think the final point of the race, I think, is what Anirudh can aim for realistically right now. I mean, maybe if he can get the position down on Joseph as well, who's just a little further down the road from Gyan. And I think a battle might be on here for P9, which comes at a convenient time because, well, we seem to be having some technical difficulties right now. Do bear with us, and we will keep you updated.
Yeah, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, like we have to stick with Gyan, I think, Gyan, and there is like not a small, it's a lot of pain right now for us to control the stream. We're trying to fix it in the meantime. Do just wait.
It's alright, because Gyan is actually embroiled in a battle now with Joseph, both drivers separated by only a second here, so maybe we will have something to see. As I think Kuti may have pitted? No, he has not as of yet. But there is a margin of about 24 seconds between the two drivers, Kuti and SD. Who's currently in second as Gyan goes wide, unable to make up. He was just making up time on D. Joseph, but D. Joseph now puts a nice 2 to 3 second buffer between himself and Gyan behind him. Anirudh also Anirudh is actually catching Gyan up. He's caught up 2 seconds since we last checked up, and that gap is only coming down further, and maybe there is a possibility of him bringing home at least 1 to 2 points this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we are at it, Kuti went in for his pit and he's trying to out. He did complete his pit. Did he? No, he still didn't complete his pit. So he
it's
lost
gonna
the
be
positions again. So yeah.
it's gonna be interesting to see. Oh wait, he has pit now, and he will lose. Wow, he's lost 3 positions as all 3 drivers, SD, Banerjee, and Jackster, the top 3 from the first lap of the race, have now re-inherited their positions from Kuti. But I have to say, a valiant drive from Kuti. He was on P8 or P9. I think he may have been even further back than that, and he has, though under controversial circumstances, he has driven a very good race, and he's managed to get good points on the table. We are still on board with Gyan, and that is purely because we cannot change between the drivers. There's a technical difficulty on our side, but we will manage to the best of our abilities because that is what we do. It's what we do best.
Yeah,
Anyways,
excuse me for 2 minutes, okay? I have to take an important call. So yeah, just 2 minutes.
All right. Interestingly, Gyan is now catching back up to Joseph. The gap is now again a second, which leads me to believe that Gyan is much, much faster than Joseph ahead of him. They're both... no, Joseph is in the McLaren. Gyan is in the Ferrari. But keep an eye on Anirudh behind him. I think that'll be an interesting battle coming into the final couple of laps. Only 4 seconds, or I should say 5 seconds, separate the 3 drivers. So maybe if there's a possibility of... getting embroiled in a battle, then we will have something to witness in the last couple of minutes. Masoom, after getting a fairly good start, unfortunately not able to capitalize much on it, got involved in a couple of incidents. I think may have been pushed off the track in 1 or 2 places, and currently finds himself at P7 as the battle is hotting up here between Gyan and Joseph. Right on the diffuser there of Joseph is Gyan in the number 7 Ferrari, which is the blue car on your screen right now, and has been for the last 5 minutes. And it will be continue to do so until we can battle between Gyan and Joseph. Sidhu just getting past back markers between Shetty and Bharat in terms of being between back markers, and he has now gone past them as this battle is really hotting up now.
And in the meantime, we can only hope that this race ends well without any further contact and anything.
I do believe we have control of our stream back. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes, absolutely.
We do have control of our stream back, so welcome back.
And that calls for some sort of patience. We are back and on board with Aurora right now. E5, and he is being chased by Abhishek, while we have Cookie who's still trying to chase Jackster, but there is a gap of more than 10 seconds. Yeah, more than 10 seconds. So yeah, last 7 minutes I don't think he will be able to catch up, but yeah, he really did race from last to first today. He really did show us that Indian pace of race.
I do apologize if you can't hear us as clearly. Getting the game audio turned down a little bit. But as you were saying there, Quantum, we are entering the final stages of the race here. This will be trying to make those last ditch moves to maybe get that 1 or 2 points extra in the Drivers' Championship, which can go a long way. But after driving a fairly consistent race, Kuti currently finds himself in P4. Shubham Das is still our race leader. He was our race leader at the beginning, then briefly lost the lead after falling back during his pit window, but has now re-inherited the lead from Kuti, and he's now in P1 again. Banerjee in P2, Jackson in P3.
Yeah, and while we are at it, we can see that Faizan is between Das and Banerjee, and Banerjee will, I guess, try to make a move onto Faizan going into Das, because he has been showing a prominent pace and he has been able to keep a gap of less than 1 second between him and Das. So yeah, while we were speaking about that, Kutti and Jackster has been able to improve his pace and get a lot ahead on Kutti. So yeah, and in the meantime, we have Electric, Faizan, Shrup, Bharat. We have all the back markers, including the racers. So yeah, it's a pretty well balanced grid right now. Everyone is being separated by a back marker, and the group is being separated by a back marker.
That could also be a source of great entertainment for us, as back markers and the faster drivers are constantly engaged in a tug of war to see who is willing to be braver into every braking section, which may not be the case, obviously, but maybe it's interesting to see if that is the case. We are heading into the final 5 minutes there, and go on, Quantum.
And T Shetty, he went into the pits in the last 5 minutes, and he has been in the pit for like what 30 seconds, more than 30 seconds. So yeah, I think something is really wrong with his car, or
Must be
maybe
big
he
damage.
forgot.
Must be big damage on his car, as we see Aurora, and I think that was Electric behind him, but Aurora just went off the track at Tamburello, and but he still managed to keep his position. Masoom, is he currently in a battle with anyone? I think he may be with it. I think Sidhu may be within a second of Masoom here, and both drivers seem to be within 3 seconds of D Abhishek up the road. Maybe this is an important battle going into the crucial stages of this race.
Yeah, and also something that we have to keep in mind is like some of the cars, like we can see that the gap is really closing down. The packs are getting closer, and we can see that the tires, like giving away their lives. And as we see a 5 car train coming out of the final chicane. Yeah, so
Two drivers fighting for position, and one driver currently. Oh, no, it's a mix of back markers and faster drivers, is what I was trying to say. Hearing myself, that's from my own stream. Sorry. Masoom, is that a driver going into the pits there?
yeah,
Was that Shetty again?
no, that was Abhishek who's going into the pits.
Okay, so D Abhishek goes into the pits. I think everyone moves up a position. As a result, yes, and Abhishek drops down to P8. I think he might lose another position to Gyan in P9. But
Yeah, I think
Masoom,
Mike has calculated the amount of fuel he needs for the race, and that
interesting.
yeah. And
But
also we can see Shetty is still in the pits. So Shetty was I think P7 when he was driving, and he dropped to P17, and that was what like I was surprised at. And he hasn't come out of the pits till now. I think there is some problem on his side maybe. So yeah, that's unfortunate for him.
that is true. We are heading into the final stages of this race here. Anirudh has made up 2 positions, and he has taken P9. I'm not sure if you mentioned that, Quantum, but I am mentioning it
Yeah,
again.
like he
Uh,
barely creeped his way into the top tens right now, and I think what he's 2 seconds slower than. I mean, the gap between him and Gyan is 2 seconds. So yeah, he'll still be trying to get that position, but it's the final 2 minutes. Like what, 1.5 more laps. So yeah, that's unfortunate for him. That's a really bad race for him. But what can we say? Like every day is not the best day.
Yeah, what can be said, indeed. Um, of course, even the best have a day off. I think they just have a bad day. Not everything goes in their favor, and I mean, what separates the best from the truly great is that they have the ability to salvage something even from a relatively bad day, and I think he's managed to do that pretty well. I mean, some points on the table is better than none at all, and I mean, in his mind, he's probably wanted to be a bit more, but obviously not always possible.
And it has been a pretty eventful race overall. And I think if we focus on to the top three or four, there are no tifosis right now. So bad day for the tifosi fans. But yeah, my favorite car is still up there. And
Ooh,
Kian losing it out of the Tamburello chicane.
you
And
mentioned bad day for a Tifosi, and we see a Ferrari pirouetting in front of us. Big spinola there for Gyan. Doesn't seem to lose a position though, but that does mean that he is now within a second of D. Joseph, and D. Joseph now senses a position potentially becoming available. This is going to be the last lap of the race, most probably. 30 seconds left on the clock right now, so if D. Joseph does want to get a position done, it will have to be here. Anirudh making up another position up into P8. But having a fairly uneventful race started at the back. His usual strategy is to mirror and just copy the driving style of the driver ahead of him, and usually it works out fairly well, and he can sit behind a faster driver and perfectly match their pace. But unfortunately today he's not really had any fast drivers ahead of him, so it's been fairly difficult for him to keep up with the rest of the field today. It has been a brilliant race for SD, who's is currently uncontested coming into the final sector here. I think he will take the victory today in commanding fashion. Briefly, it looked like he was wavering, but with Kuti mounting a massive surge on the top three, but he obviously dropped back during the pit window, so that's not the case.
yeah, and also we can see that like the overall pace in the top fives are quite separated right now. I mean the gaps, not pace, my bad. The gaps are they are quite separated from each other. So yeah, this will be the final. Yeah, this will be the final lap, or is it the checkered flag? I think this is the checkered flag.
This will be the checkered flag for SD. Yeah. I think this is SD coming through to take the race win at Imola. Fantastic drive from SD, very consistent, never put a foot wrong. And I mean, it hasn't been a big doubt from his side. SD takes, I wouldn't, I'm pretty unsure on that, but he takes another race victory in Imola. Big points on the board for him there. Banerjee comes in P2. Jackster, after losing out on that one position on the opening lap, has managed to stay behind Jackster for the entirety of the race and finishes in P3. Kuti, with a controversial but fantastic drive from him nonetheless, he ends up in P4, but I think race control will have a word or two with him afterwards. Aurora finishing in P5, Sidhu in P6. Yes. Masoom, after having a kind of an iffy up and down race, finishes in P7. A couple of drivers coming across, back marker drivers coming through here. Anirudh, after driving a very consistent race, just as I say there, he makes a mistake coming out of the final turn, but after a difficult race start and getting pushed aside and bullied at the beginning stages, he does come to take P8 and close the gap, if only by a small margin, does close the gap to Prakhar in the Drivers' Championship.
Yep. And yeah, probably what you said earlier, like not getting anything, like getting some point instead of not getting anything. Yeah. So he has still been able to back some points, and we are on board AC, who is still yet to cross the checkered flag, and the race is over. The top three for you are Subham Das, Rishabh Banerjee, and G Jackster. So that was Imola for you guys, and we'll hop into the podium interviews in a few seconds.
We will go into the podium interviews and have a talk with our three drivers. But Before we go into that, Quantum, if you are still there, who was your driver of the day for today?
Who was my driver of the day for today? Kutti. Like he had some points over the race where it's need to be rechecked by race control. But yeah, last to fourth, and also leading the race for quite a few laps. That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
I mean, let's look at it this way. You can't make an overtake on someone unless you're faster than them. So he has been a very fast driver today, and that's what allowed him to make those overtakes. So instead of looking at it from a perspective where he made some reckless overtakes, let's look at it as he had a very fast car and he had a very good drive and eventually finishes in P4.
Yep,
We should
absolutely.
be getting our drivers in for the podium interview now. I think we should be having a look in a second here. I actually think we may not be able to do the podium interview.
Just give me a second. I'll look into it.
Also, while the race is finished and while we still have our audience here, we would like to wish everyone Good Friday because it's Good Friday tomorrow. Oh, and we do have a podium interview. Deepest apologies. We will be getting the drivers on board here, and I think now that one of the drivers is here, I think we can get it started. So let's kick it off with our race winner for today, a commanding drive from Shubham Das SD. Are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic race from you. How did it pan out for you?
Yeah, so I mean, the weather conditions did not definitely make it easy, but yeah, I'm really happy. The practice that I did last week until up to this race was really fruitful, and yeah, I was really happy because the AMG is typically a very good car around this track, but I was happy because I was able to get the most out of the car due to the setup that was there. So yeah, uh, I mean, as you see, AMG 1-2, so yeah, well done to Rishabh for P2 as well. But yeah, I'm really happy, and hopefully I can continue this winning streak in the next race.
Yeah, and good luck to you for that. That was an amazing race from you.
Thank you.
Let's have a look a little further down, but before we leave USD, we do have one more question for you. How was it contending with the challenging conditions? We did see a couple of other drivers struggling in the rain, but you seem to be well within your element. So, how was that for you?
So yeah, you need to actually adapt based on what the conditions are there. Of course, that's a given. But yeah, so the ideal situation would be where a fast track or optimum track, but we had a greasy track today. So it all depends on your confidence in the car. So whenever you see changing conditions, it is better to basically cool off a little bit of the brakes or like get on the throttle a little bit later. So yeah, I tried to do my best, and as you see, it worked out in the end.
Well, congratulations, man, and congrats on your race victory. Good points on the board then for the Mercedes team today as we go to the second Mercedes driver on the podium, which is Rishabh Banerjee. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and we got to witness a fairly, would you say, a fairly uneventful race for you today?
I mean, I was trying to drive the car for 1 hour, and I was about to crash like every corner. So yeah, it was pretty eventful for me.
Obviously, it's very different for the situation in the commentary box compared to the drivers. And speaking about the conditions, how did you adapt to the difficult conditions today?
Um, yeah, the first stint was pretty okay for me. I was struggling a bit, but yeah, I just stuck to my racing line, and I had clear air for most of the time, so I was pretty fine. Second stint was better because my tires were better, so yeah, it was just maintaining, having a consistency and a rhythm, and yeah, you do fine then.
Well, anyways, congratulations on your performance. Any questions from you, Quantum? I don't think Quantum is available, so we will, once again, congratulations on your performance today, Rishabh. We will now go to Jackster, who finished in P3. Jackster, are you available?
How are you, mate?
I am doing very well, thank you. We have to talk about the incident in the first lap. Well, not really an incident per se, but it was almost you lost a position right into Tamburello at turn 1, and I think since then you were behind the two drivers ahead of you for the large quantity of the race. What happened there?
Yeah, basically, if you have seen my other races, I have always been always been has some kind of incident with me. So I was taking it really cautious in the first lap. So I was not worrying if I lose a position or two in lap 1 or 2, but trying to start the race cleanly. And after lap 1, I think I was pretty happy with my position and pace after a couple of laps. So yeah.
And what was your evaluation of the conditions today? It was a fairly wet race out there.
Uh,
It didn't seem to be getting any better at any point.
yeah. The conditions were very difficult, but yeah, once you drive the car, like you drive in this condition, you get confident, and if you just put on lap after lap, braking at the same marker and doing all the same stuff over and over again, it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, the conditions were pretty tough. Like we had to, I'm sure all of us had to work extra time. I'm like drenched in sweat right now, so yeah, you can understand.
Well, it's a well-earned podium for you then. Jackster, P3 in the race today. Congratulations, good sir. And that rounds off our podium interview for today. A fairly uneventful race at the front of the pack, but fairly eventful at the rear of the pack. But I do think we're looking at the championship standings for Tier 1 from Season 1. And not Season 2, which is the current season that we are on. But I think this still means that Brakarvats retains his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Although Anirudh, after finishing in P8, will briefly manage to close the gap. Anyways, that means that we do come to the end of the stream here for Imola. Thank you very much for watching. My name is 8 Sunders of Fury. Thank you and good night.